A doctor in Boston discovered a secret about his patient that changed everything. The rain had been falling over Boston since before dawn, turning the streets into long ribbons of silver beneath the yellow glow of the lamps. By 7 in the morning, the windows of St. Catherine's Medical Center were covered with tiny streams of water, and the city beyond them looked blurred, distant, almost unreal. Dr. Ethan Miller stood beside the glass wall of his office, holding a cup of coffee he had forgotten to drink. From the 22nd floor, Boston looked peaceful. The Charles River was hidden beneath a gray veil, the buildings appeared softer at their edges, and the traffic moved slowly through the wet streets. But Ethan knew that every ambulance arriving at the emergency entrance carried a different kind of storm. He had worked at St. Catherine's for almost 15 years. He had treated victims of accidents, children with severe infections, elderly patients whose bodies had begun to fail, and young people whose hearts had stopped without warning. He had seen families break apart in waiting rooms and reunite beside hospital beds. He had learned how to deliver terrible news without sounding cold, and how to offer hope without making promises he could not keep. People often called him calm. Some called him distant. His colleagues admired his precision, but few knew much about his life outside the hospital. Ethan came early, left late, and lived alone in a small apartment in Beacon Hill. He had no children, no pets, and no one waiting for him at home. For years, he had told himself that this was a choice. He had chosen medicine, he had chosen long hours, difficult decisions, and the quiet discipline of a life built around other people's emergencies. He had convinced himself that loneliness was simply the price of being useful. That morning, however, something unsettled him before the day had even begun. At 7:18, his assistant Nora appeared in the doorway. "Dr. Miller, your first patient is here," she said. "She arrived early. Who is it?" "Her name is Claire Bennett. She was referred by Dr. Howard. He said you should see her personally." Ethan turned from the window. "What's the problem?" Nora hesitated. "Unexplained pain, severe fatigue, and some abnormal results." "Dr. Howard sounded concerned." Ethan nodded. "Send her in." A moment later, the door opened again. The woman who entered looked younger than Ethan expected. She was probably in her early 30s, though the deep shadows beneath her eyes made her seem older. Her brown hair was pulled into a loose knot, and she wore a dark wool coat that was still damp from the rain. She held a worn leather handbag tightly against her body with both hands. She paused near the door as if she had forgotten why she had come. "Ms. Bennett?" Ethan asked. "Yes, I'm Dr. Miller. Please, sit down." She took the chair across from his desk. Her movements were careful, almost cautious. Ethan noticed that her left hand trembled slightly when she placed the handbag on her lap. "Dr. Howard sent over your records," Ethan said. "I've looked through most of them, but I'd like to hear from you directly. Tell me what has been happening." Claire stared at him for several seconds. "It started about 6 months ago," she said. "At first I thought it was stress. I was tired all the time. Then I started getting headaches. After that, the pain began." "Where?" "Here," she touched the left side of her abdomen. "Sometimes it's sharp. Sometimes it feels like pressure. Sometimes I wake up at night because it feels like someone is squeezing me from the inside." "Any nausea?" "Yes." "Weight loss?" "About 12 pounds. "Fever?" "Not that I know of." "Changes in appetite?" "I'm rarely hungry anymore." Ethan studied her records. Her blood tests showed anemia, unusual inflammation markers, and signs that her body had been under stress for some time. The scans were inconclusive. One doctor had suspected a gastrointestinal disorder, another had suggested anxiety, a third had prescribed medication that had done almost nothing. "Have you had any surgeries?" Claire's fingers tightened around the strap of her handbag. "No." "Any serious illnesses?" "No." "Any family history of cancer, autoimmune disease, or blood disorders?" "My mother died when I was a child," Claire said. "I don't know much about my father. Do you have siblings?" No, you were raised by your mother? Claire looked down. Not exactly. Ethan noticed the change in her voice. Who raised you? My grandmother. Where? Massachusetts, mostly in a town outside Worcester. I moved to Boston when I was 19. Do you know what your mother died from? Claire's face became still. She disappeared first, she said. Then they found her body 2 weeks later. Ethan lowered the papers. I'm sorry, she was 27. The police said it was an accident. Her car went off a bridge during a storm. And your father? I was told he left before I was born. Have you ever tried to find him? No, why not? Claire looked toward the rain-streaked window. Because my grandmother said he didn't want me. There was something strange in the way she said it. Not anger, not sadness, more like someone repeating words she had heard so many times that they no longer belonged to her. Ethan continued the examination. Her pulse was fast. Her skin was pale. She had tenderness in the upper left abdomen and a faint scar below her ribs, nearly hidden beneath her clothing. He frowned. Have you had an injury there? Claire looked surprised. No. This scar is old. Do you know how it happened? She touched it gently. I thought it was from a childhood accident. Who told you that? My grandmother. Ethan leaned back in his chair. The scar was small but irregular. It was not the kind usually caused by a simple fall. It looked surgical. Do you have any medical records from childhood? No. My grandmother kept everything, but after she died, most of her belongings were thrown away. When did she die? 3 years ago. Were you close? Claire gave a faint smile that disappeared almost immediately. She was the only person I had. Ethan ordered additional tests and scheduled imaging for later that afternoon. He explained that they needed to understand the cause of her symptoms before making assumptions. Claire listened without interrupting. When he finished, she stood up. Will I have to stay in the hospital? Not necessarily. We'll know more after the scans. She nodded, but she did not move toward the door. Dr. Miller? Yes? Do you think there's something seriously wrong with me? Ethan had learned not to answer questions like that with either false reassurance or unnecessary fear. I think your symptoms deserve a serious investigation, he said. That doesn't mean the worst is true. It means we need facts. Claire looked at him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Facts, she repeated. Yes, she picked up her handbag and left. Ethan watched the door close behind her. He told himself that his uneasiness came from the medical uncertainty, but deep down, he knew it was something else. There had been a moment when Claire touched the scar beneath her ribs. Her expression had changed, not because of pain, but because of recognition, as though some part of her already knew what had been hidden there. The scans that afternoon revealed a mass near Claire's spleen. It was not large, but it was positioned in a way that made the image difficult to interpret. The radiologist recommended a more advanced scan and possibly a biopsy. Ethan called Claire himself. You need to come back tomorrow morning, he said. Is it cancer? We don't know. Is it likely? I can't tell you that yet. There was silence on the line. Did you find something? Yes, what? A mass. It may be benign. It may be related to inflammation or an old injury. We need more information. An old injury, Claire said quietly. Do you remember having any serious accident? No. Any hospitalization when you were a child? No. Are you sure? I've never been in a hospital before. Ethan looked at the scan on his computer screen. Then let's find out why there is a scar and what this mass is. Claire did not answer immediately. I'll come tomorrow, she said. That night, Ethan went home later than usual. The rain had stopped, but the city remained wet and shining. He walked from the hospital to his apartment instead of taking a taxi. He needed the cold air. On Charles Street, he passed a woman sitting beneath an awning with a paper cup between her hands. She looked exhausted, but when Ethan glanced at her, she smiled politely. He gave her some money and kept walking. In his apartment, he removed his coat and placed it over a chair. The rooms were silent. A framed photograph stood on the bookshelf, turned slightly toward the wall. Ethan had not looked at it in months. He picked it up. The photograph showed a woman with dark hair and gentle eyes. She was standing beside a younger Ethan near the front steps of a house in Cambridge. She was smiling at the camera, but Ethan remembered that she had been crying moments earlier. Her name was Anna. She had been his older sister. Anna had died 17 years earlier. Ethan had been 26 at the time, finishing his residency. Anna was 31 and had recently given birth to a baby girl. She had suffered complications after delivery, and by the time the doctors understood what was happening, it was too late. Ethan had been the one to tell their parents. He still remembered his mother's scream. He still remembered his father staring at the floor, unable to speak. He remembered the small white blanket wrapped around Anna's baby. The child had been named Lily. 3 days after Anna's death, Lily disappeared from the hospital nursery. No one ever found her. The police believed someone had taken the baby. There had been no ransom demand, no clear suspect, and no reliable surveillance footage. The investigation slowly faded. Ethan's parents never recovered. His father died believing Lily was still alive somewhere. His mother died 2 years later, carrying the same grief. Ethan had not allowed himself to imagine Lily as an adult. To do so felt like betraying the little girl he remembered, the child who had slept beneath a white blanket while the hospital lights reflected off the window. He placed the photograph back on the shelf. For 17 years, he had buried that part of his life beneath work. He had never spoken about Lily with his colleagues. Most people at St. Catherine's knew nothing about his family. Even Nora believed he was an only child. The next morning, Claire arrived at 8:02. She looked even paler than before. She had not slept. The advanced scan confirmed the mass, but the result was unusual. It appeared to be connected to tissue that had been altered by an old surgical procedure. Ethan studied the images with 2 specialists. There was evidence of scar tissue, but also a small metallic fragment near the edge of the mass. A surgical clip? One of the doctors asked. Possibly, Ethan said. Could have been placed years ago. Why would she have no record? Maybe the records were lost. Or maybe she doesn't remember. The biopsy would require surgery. Ethan explained this to Claire in a consultation room. We need to remove a sample, he said. The procedure is common, but because of the location, I want to be careful. How soon? Within the week. Claire stared at the floor. Could I leave it alone? I wouldn't recommend that. What happens if I refuse? The mass could continue growing. It could cause internal bleeding or affect nearby organs. Could it kill me? It could become dangerous. I don't want to frighten you, but we need to take it seriously. Claire's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. I'm not afraid of dying, she said. Ethan watched her carefully. You should be. I'm afraid of dying without knowing who I am. The words struck him harder than he expected. What do you mean? She opened her handbag and removed a small envelope. It was yellowed with age and sealed with transparent tape. My grandmother gave me this 2 days before she died, Claire said. She told me never to open it unless something happened to me. Ethan did not speak. I forgot about it, she continued. I found it last night in a box beneath my bed. There's a note inside. I haven't read it. Why bring it to me? Because your name is on the front. Ethan felt the air change in the room. Claire placed the envelope on the table between them. His name was written across it in faded blue ink. Ethan Miller. He recognized the handwriting immediately. It belonged to his mother. For several seconds, neither of them moved. That's impossible, Ethan whispered. Claire's hands began to shake. I know. Ethan reached toward the envelope but stopped before touching it. Where did you get this? My grandmother gave it to me. Your grandmother's name? Margaret Bennett. The name meant nothing to him. Did she ever live in Cambridge? I don't know. She lived in a small town called Ashford for most of her life. Ethan picked up the envelope. The paper felt fragile. His mother's handwriting was unmistakable. He had seen it on birthday cards, grocery lists, and letters she used to leave beside his breakfast when he was young. The envelope had not been written recently. It had been folded and unfolded many times. He broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Ethan read the first line, and everything inside him seemed to stop. My dear Ethan, if you are reading this, then the truth has finally found its way back to you. He continued. I have spent 17 years trying to protect the child who survived, while grieving the child we lost. You will hate me for what I did. You should. But I need you to understand that I believed I had no other choice. Lily did not die in the hospital. She was taken away because someone wanted her dead. Ethan's vision blurred. He read the next line twice. The woman you know as Claire Bennett is your niece. He lowered the paper. Claire was staring at him. What does it say? Ethan could not answer. What does it say? She repeated, louder this time. He looked at her face. The shape of her eyes, the slight curve of her mouth, the small crease near her left eyebrow. He had seen those features before. Not in a photograph of Lily, because there had never been one, but in Anna. His sister's eyes. My mother wrote this, he said. Claire's breathing became shallow. Your mother? Yes, what did she say? Ethan handed her the paper. Claire read it slowly. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She says I'm your niece, Claire whispered. Ethan nodded. She says I'm Lily. He could not say the words. Claire looked at him with horror. No, I'm sorry. No, that's not possible. Claire, my name is Claire Bennett. That's the name you were given. My mother was Rebecca Bennett. Your grandmother? Margaret. Ethan sat down heavily. Claire stood and began pacing the room. No, my grandmother told me my mother died in a car accident. She said my father abandoned us. She said I was born in Ashford. She told me, your mother's name was Anna Miller, Ethan said quietly. She died after giving birth to you. Claire froze. I don't remember her. You were 3 days old. I don't remember anything. Ethan looked at the letter again. There was more. Anna's husband, Daniel, was not the father of the baby. He was not supposed to know about the pregnancy. He had threatened Anna before she gave birth. He said that if the child carried the family disease, he would make sure she never lived long enough to suffer. I believed him. I knew he had friends in the hospital. I knew the police would not protect you if he found you. Ethan's hands went numb. Daniel had been Anna's husband. He had died in a boating accident 6 years after Anna's death. At the time, everyone had assumed it was an accident caused by alcohol and bad weather. The letter continued. Margaret Bennett helped me take the baby from the nursery. She had worked at the hospital for 12 years and knew how to move through the building without being noticed. We created a false trail. We made people believe Lily had been taken by a stranger. In truth, Margaret brought you to Ashford, where she raised you as her own granddaughter. I wanted to tell you. Every year I planned to tell you. But every year, the threat remained. Daniel continued searching. He believed you were dead, but he never stopped asking questions. I thought secrecy was the only thing keeping you alive. The letter trembled in Ethan's hands. There was one more page. The mass inside you is connected to the reason we were afraid. You were born with a rare genetic condition. Anna had it. I may have it. Daniel blamed you for the possibility that you would inherit it. He said your life would be a burden, and that no child should be forced to live with such suffering. If you become ill, find Ethan. He will understand the records. He will know what to do. I am sorry that I waited so long. I am sorry that I stole your family from you. But I loved you more than I feared your hatred. Your mother, Sarah Claire, stood near the window, silent and shaking. Ethan read the final sentence again. Your mother, Sarah. He had never understood why his mother had been so broken after Lily's disappearance. He had assumed she was grieving the loss of her grandchild. He had never imagined that she had participated in the disappearance. Why didn't she tell me? Claire asked. Because she thought you were in danger. From whom? Your father. Daniel? Yes, he wasn't my father. No, he was Anna's husband. Claire turned to him. Then who was my father? Ethan looked at the letter. There was no name. The day that followed became a blur of tests, consultations, and questions no medical chart could answer. Ethan ordered genetic testing and asked the hospital's records department to search the archives from 17 years earlier. Most of the files had been moved to an off-site storage facility, and many had been damaged by flooding. Claire agreed to stay in the hospital overnight for observation. She was placed in a private room on the 19th floor, away from the noise of the emergency wing. Ethan visited her every few hours. At first, she refused to speak to him. Then, late in the afternoon, she asked him to sit. Tell me about her, Claire said. Who? My mother? Ethan pulled a chair beside the bed. Anna was stubborn, he said. She argued with everyone. She once returned a dress to a store because the cashier had been rude to an elderly woman. Claire smiled faintly. She loved music. She played the piano, but she never performed in front of anyone. She said she was only good when no one was listening. What did she look like? Ethan opened his phone and searched through old photographs. He had very few. Most were stored in boxes at his parents' former home, which had been sold years ago. He found one from Anna's wedding. She was standing beneath a tree, wearing a simple white dress. Her hair was loose around her shoulders. She was laughing at something outside the frame. Ethan showed Claire. Claire stared at the image. She looks like me, she whispered. Yes, did she love me? She never met you in the way you imagine. But she loved you before you were born. She talked about you all the time. How do you know? She was my sister. Were you there when I was born? Ethan's throat tightened. Yes, what happened? She had complications. The delivery was difficult. You were born early, but you were healthy. Anna was very weak. Did she see me? Yes, they placed you beside her for a few minutes. What did she say? Ethan closed his eyes. She said you had strong hands. Claire looked down at her own hands. She held your finger, he continued. She said you were going to be brave. Then she told me to take care of you. Did you? Ethan could not respond. You lost me, Claire said. I know, you let me disappear. I didn't know you had survived. But my mother knew. She believed she was protecting you. She left me with a woman who lied to me my entire life. Margaret may have believed she was doing what was necessary. You all decided what was best for me. My mother, your mother, my grandmother. Everyone made choices about my life, and no one asked me. Her voice broke. Ethan looked at the floor. You're right. Claire wiped her face angrily. I don't want your apology. I know. I don't want you to treat me like some tragic family story. I won't. I don't want you to feel responsible for saving me. I don't. She looked at him suspiciously. Then what do you want? Ethan thought about the question. I want you to have the truth, even if it makes you hate us. Claire turned away. Outside the window, the rain began again. The genetic results arrived 3 days later. Claire did have the condition described in the letter. It was rare and potentially dangerous, but manageable with treatment. The mass near her spleen was not cancer. It was a complicated cluster of abnormal tissue caused by the condition and an old surgical intervention performed during infancy. The scar had been created when she was taken from the hospital. The metallic fragment was part of a surgical clip placed by the doctor who had performed the emergency procedure. The records confirmed it. Ethan spent hours reading the old hospital files. They revealed a secret far more complicated than his mother's letter. Anna had been diagnosed with the condition during pregnancy. It was genetic. The doctors warned her that the baby could inherit it. Daniel had responded with rage. He had become convinced that the child would destroy their lives. In a journal discovered in the old archives, Anna had written that Daniel had threatened to kill the baby. Ethan read the words with a growing sense of horror. He remembered Daniel as a charming man who always spoke softly in public. At family dinners, he had seemed polite, attentive, almost shy. Ethan had disliked him, but never understood why. The records showed that Daniel had visited the hospital the night Lily was born. He had demanded to see the baby. When staff refused, he had threatened a nurse. The following morning, Anna died. 3 days later, Lily vanished. A handwritten note in the file identified the nurse who had helped Sarah and Margaret move the baby. Her name was Evelyn Price. Evelyn was still alive. She lived in a nursing home in Quincy. Ethan and Claire visited her together. The woman they found was 92 years old, thin and delicate, with white hair braided down her back. She sat near a window, watching cars move along the street outside. When Ethan introduced himself, Evelyn's expression changed. "I wondered when you would come," she said. Ethan felt a chill move through him. "You knew my mother? I knew Sarah, I knew Anna, I knew Margaret. Did you know Lily?" Evelyn looked at Claire. "I knew you before you had a name." Claire sat beside her. "Why did you take me? To keep you alive." "Did my mother know?" Evelyn nodded. "Did she want me gone?" "No, she wanted you safe." "Then why didn't she raise me?" "Because she was dying." She had no power against Daniel. He had money, influence, and a cruel imagination. He had already told Anna that if the baby inherited the illness, he would not allow her to live. Claire's face tightened. Why did everyone believe him? Because people thought he was grieving. He was very good at appearing reasonable. Was he my father? No. Who was? Evelyn hesitated. "Your father was a man named Michael Bennett." Claire frowned. "Bennett? Yes, Margaret's son." Claire slowly looked at Ethan. "Your grandmother was my father's mother?" Apparently, Ethan said. Evelyn continued. "Michael was young. He and Anna loved each other before she married Daniel. When Anna became pregnant, she was afraid. Michael wanted to marry her, but his mother refused to accept the relationship. She believed Anna was too sick and would ruin his future." "What happened to him?" Claire asked. Evelyn's eyes lowered. "He died before you were born." "How?" "An overdose." Claire stared at her. "Was it an accident?" "No one knows." Evelyn's voice grew weaker. Michael had been trying to expose Daniel. He believed Daniel was responsible for threats made against Anna. He also knew about your illness. He wanted to take you away after you were born. Did he know I was alive? He knew you were coming. He never saw you. Claire clasped her hands in her lap. "So my grandmother stole me because she hated my mother? She stole you because she was terrified. She believed Anna was unstable and Michael was dead. She thought she could save you by hiding you. She lied to me." "Yes. Did she ever regret it?" "Every day." Evelyn reached toward Claire but stopped before touching her. "Margaret loved you in the only way she understood. It was not enough. Love does not excuse lies." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "Did my mother try to find me?" "Sarah did. She visited Ashford several times. Margaret would not let her see you. Sarah watched you from a distance." Claire's lips parted. "She saw me? Many times. Why didn't she come to me?" Because she believed Margaret would move you if she did. She was afraid Daniel would discover you. Did he? Evelyn shook her head. No, he died 6 years after Anna. But by then, Sarah was ill. She spent the rest of her life trying to find a way to tell Ethan. Claire looked at Ethan. Your mother knew I was alive. She did, and she never told you? She was afraid I would search for you and expose you. Claire stood and walked toward the window. For a long time, no one spoke. Finally, she asked, "What was my real name?" Evelyn smiled sadly. Lily Anna Miller. The name passed through the room like a whisper. Ethan had not heard it spoken in 17 years. Claire repeated it. Lily Anna Miller. Then she began to cry, not quietly, not gracefully. Her entire body shook with the force of it. She covered her face with both hands and bent forward. Ethan rose from his chair, unsure whether he had the right to approach her. Claire turned toward him. Don't touch me. He stopped. I'm sorry, he said. She nodded, still crying. You have said that so many times. I don't know what else to say. Neither do I. They returned to the hospital in silence. That evening, Claire's condition worsened. She developed severe abdominal pain and collapsed in the hallway outside her room. Nurses rushed her into surgery. Ethan was not allowed to operate because he was too emotionally involved, but he remained in the hospital throughout the night. For the first time in his career, he found himself waiting outside an operating room for someone he loved. He did not know when that had happened. Maybe the moment Claire walked into his office? Maybe the moment she said she was afraid of dying without knowing who she was? Maybe the moment she looked at Anna's photograph and recognized herself. At 3:40 in the morning, the surgeon came out. She's stable, he said. We removed the damaged tissue. There was internal bleeding, but we controlled it. Ethan closed his eyes. Will she recover? She should. The next 48 hours are important. Ethan sat in the waiting area until sunrise. At 8, Claire woke. Ethan was asleep in a chair beside her bed, his head tilted awkwardly against the wall. Claire watched him for a long time before speaking. Doctor? He opened his eyes. You're awake. I'm still here. Yes, did you stay all night? Yes, you didn't have to. I know, she was quiet. Did my mother stay with you when I was born? Ethan looked at her. What? Did she stay in the hospital all night? Yes, tell me what happened. He hesitated. You don't have to. I want to know. Ethan pulled the chair closer. Your mother was afraid when she arrived. She knew the delivery could be dangerous. She asked me to promise that if something happened, I would protect you. And you promised. Yes, but you didn't. I failed. Claire stared at him. Why didn't you search for me? Because I believed you were dead. Everyone told you that? The police found no sign of you. Your grandmother disappeared. There were false records suggesting you had been taken out of state. We searched hospitals, shelters, and adoption agencies. We looked for years. Did you give up? No, but you stopped. Ethan nodded. I was exhausted. Your grandparents were grieving. My father blamed himself. My mother became ill. I thought the truth was that you were gone. Did you ever imagine finding me? Every day. Claire turned toward the window. Was I a good baby? Ethan smiled for the first time in days. You were loud. She laughed softly, then winced from the pain. You cried constantly. The nurses said you had strong lungs. Anything else? You held on to people's fingers. You didn't like being alone. Claire looked at him. Maybe that part of me never changed. No, the next weeks were difficult. Claire needed additional treatment and regular monitoring. She could not return immediately to work. Ethan arranged for her to meet with specialists who were not connected to him, because he understood that she needed care without the weight of their family history. He also began to search for every piece of information he could find about her past. Claire stayed in the hospital for 12 days. During that time, Ethan visited her every evening, but he did not force conversation. Sometimes they spoke about Anna. Sometimes they discussed ordinary things, the terrible coffee in the cafeteria, the noise from the construction site across the street, the way Claire's apartment cat, whom she had never mentioned before, had been waiting for her return. "You have a cat?" Ethan asked. "Her name is June. Why didn't you tell me? You never asked?" He smiled. "What is she like?" "Suspicious. She hates strangers. Like you?" "Exactly like me." He wanted to ask if he was still a stranger, but he did not. One afternoon, Claire asked him to bring something from his apartment. "What?" "The photograph of my mother." Ethan brought it the next day. Claire placed it on the bedside table. She looked at it whenever she thought Ethan was not watching. When she was discharged, she did not go to her apartment immediately. Her building had no elevator, and she was still weak. Ethan offered his guest room, but she refused. "I can stay with a friend." "Good. I'm not moving in with you. I didn't ask you to. You thought about it. I thought about offering. That counts." Ethan accepted this. For the first time in years, he felt almost normal around another person. Claire had a sharp sense of humor, and she did not treat him like a doctor. She criticized him when he gave unwanted advice and ignored him when he became too serious. But beneath their uneasy connection was a question neither of them knew how to answer. Could they become family after being strangers for 17 years? The answer did not come quickly. Claire spent the next month recovering in her friend Maya's apartment in Somerville. She began therapy. She met with a genetic counselor. She searched online for information about Anna and Michael. She visited Ashford and stood outside the house where Margaret had raised her. The house was smaller than she remembered. A family with 2 young children lived there now. They had painted the front door red. Claire stood across the street for almost an hour before leaving. She never told Ethan that she had gone. He found out from Maya, who called him after Claire refused to answer her phone for an entire day. "She's not in danger," Maya said. "But she's angry." "At me? At everyone. That's understandable. She asked me whether you really loved her." Ethan sat alone in his office after the call ended. He wanted to tell Claire that love had never been the problem. The problem had been fear, silence, and the decisions people made while believing they were protecting one another. But he understood that love did not undo the damage. Weeks passed. Claire returned to work part-time at a small architectural firm near downtown Crossing. She had always been good at drawing and design, but she had never told Ethan. When he asked why she had chosen architecture, she said she liked creating places where people could feel safe. He did not know whether it was a coincidence. She began attending medical appointments with another doctor. Ethan respected her decision, though it hurt to be excluded. He knew he had no right to expect her trust simply because they shared blood. At the hospital, colleagues noticed that Ethan had changed. He took lunch breaks, he left before 9. He answered calls from unknown numbers. He even began talking about his family. One evening, Nora found him standing in the corridor looking at a photograph of Anna that Claire had given him. "Who is she?" Nora asked. "My sister." "I didn't know you had a sister." "I had one." Nora studied the photo. "Is that her daughter?" Ethan looked at Claire, who was sitting near the window at the end of the hall. "Yes," Nora glanced between them. "She looks just like her." "She does. Is she okay?" "She will be." Nora smiled. "And you?" Ethan looked at Claire again. "I'm learning." The hardest moment came when Claire found the hospital records describing her birth. She discovered that her mother had been conscious for several minutes after the delivery. Anna had asked for her baby. She had held Lily's hand. She had asked Ethan to sing the lullaby they used to sing as children. Ethan had never known this. The nurse's notes stated that Anna had become distressed when told that the baby would be taken to the nursery. She had repeatedly asked whether the child was safe. Claire read the notes in Ethan's office. Why didn't anyone tell me this before? You didn't exist in the records as Claire. But you knew she loved music. I didn't know about the lullaby. What was it? Ethan looked away. A song our father used to sing when we were children. Sing it. I can't. Why? Because I haven't sung it since she died. Claire placed the record on the desk. Sing it. Ethan swallowed. Then, quietly, he began. His voice was rough and uncertain. He had not sung in years. The melody was simple, the kind of tune that could have belonged to any family. But as he continued, memories returned. Anna sitting beside him on the floor, their father washing dishes in the kitchen, their mother laughing from the hallway. Claire listened without moving. When he finished, the room was silent. That was her last song, Claire said. Yes, no wonder I like it. Ethan looked at her. You remember? She touched her chest. Not with my mind. The discovery changed something between them. Not everything. Claire still needed distance. She still felt betrayed by the people who had shaped her life, but she began calling Ethan more often. At first, the calls were short. Did you know Mom hated olives? Yes. Did she ever have a favorite color? Blue. Did she like dogs? She was afraid of large ones. Was she afraid of anything else? Being forgotten. Claire became quiet after that. You remembered all of this? I remembered everything I could. Why? Because she was my sister. And because of me? Because of you. In the spring, Claire agreed to visit Ethan's apartment. She arrived with June, her cat, in a carrier. I thought you said she hated strangers, Ethan said. She hates being alone more. The cat emerged cautiously and disappeared beneath the sofa. Ethan had cleaned the apartment so thoroughly that Claire laughed. You made it look like no one lives here. No one usually does. That's sad. It's practical. It's sad and practical. They ordered food from a small Italian restaurant nearby. Claire explored the shelves, while Ethan opened a box he had not touched since his parents' home had been sold. Inside were letters, photographs, and a small silver bracelet. He handed it to Claire. This was given to your mother when she was a child. Claire held it carefully. Why do you have it? My mother kept it. She wanted you to have it someday. She could have given it to me. She was afraid. Claire looked at the bracelet for a long time. Everyone was always afraid. Yes. Do you think fear is an excuse? No, but it explains people. Sometimes she placed the bracelet on the table. I don't know what to do with all of this. You don't have to do anything today. What did you do with it? I buried it. Did that help? No. Then don't tell me to be patient. I won't. Claire smiled faintly. June emerged from beneath the sofa and jumped into her lap. Ethan watched the cat settle against her. Your mother used to do that, he said. What? Sit near a window with an animal in her lap. I never met her, but I keep doing things she did. You may have inherited more than a condition. Claire looked at him. Do you think I'm like her? In some ways. Which ways? You care about people who are not paying attention. You pretend not to be hurt when you are. You become stubborn when you're afraid. You laugh when you want to cry. Claire looked down at June. And you? I became quiet when I was afraid. That's worse, I know. That night, Claire stayed until almost midnight. Before leaving, she stood by the door. Would you like to meet me again? Ethan smiled. I would. Don't make it complicated. I won't. Coffee somewhere public. Fine, and don't call me Lily. I won't. Not yet. I understand. She opened the door. "Ethan?" "Yes? You can call me Claire." He nodded. It was a small permission, but it felt like the beginning of something. Over the next year, their relationship developed slowly. They met for coffee on Sundays, they visited museums, walked along the river, and sometimes sat in silence without needing to fill it. Ethan introduced Claire to old friends of Anna's. Some recognized her immediately. Others cried when they saw her face. Claire visited Anna's grave for the first time with Ethan. The cemetery was quiet beneath a sky full of pale clouds. Anna's name was carved into a stone beside their parents' names. Claire carried a bouquet of blue flowers. She stood in front of the grave for several minutes. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything. She should have known me. Yes, I should have known her. Yes. Do you think she would be disappointed in me?" "No. How can you be sure?" "Because she was proud of you before you had done anything." Claire placed the flowers beside the stone. "I'm angry with her. You're allowed to be. She left me. She didn't choose to die, but she left. Yes, do you think she would forgive me for being angry? She would probably be angry with herself." Claire wiped her eyes. "I hate that I love someone I never knew." Ethan stood beside her. "That may be what family is sometimes." She looked at him. "Is this family?" "I hope so." She reached for his hand. It was the first time she had done so. They stood together beside Anna's grave while the wind moved gently through the trees. A few months later, Claire underwent another procedure to prevent further complications from the genetic condition. This time, Ethan was not her doctor. He sat beside her before surgery as her uncle, though neither of them used that word in public. "Are you scared?" he asked. "Yes, good," she stared at him. "That is not comforting. It means you understand the seriousness of the situation. You sound like a doctor. I am one. I'm going to sleep now. Maybe when I wake up you'll be less annoying." "Probably not." Before the nurses came, Claire reached for his hand. "Stay. I will." "Promise?" Ethan remembered the promise he had made 17 years earlier, a promise he had failed to keep. This time, he answered carefully. "I will stay as long as you want me to." She closed her eyes. "That's better." The surgery went well. During her recovery, Claire asked Ethan about her father. He had avoided the subject because the information about Michael Bennett was incomplete. But Claire deserved the truth, even if it was painful. They met in the hospital garden. "Michael loved your mother," Ethan said. "He wanted to protect you." "Did he love me?" "He never met you, but he wanted to." "Why did he die?" "No one knows for sure. Your grandmother said it was an overdose. The records are unclear. Did she kill him?" "I don't know. Do you think she did?" Ethan took a breath. "I think she was desperate. I think she made terrible choices, but I don't know whether she caused his death." Claire looked at the trees. "Was he a good man?" "I only met him a few times." "Then what do you know?" "He wrote letters to your mother. I found some in the archives. Do you have them?" "Yes, can I read them?" "Whenever you're ready." She nodded. They spent the afternoon reading the letters together. Michael's handwriting was young and hurried. He wrote about wanting to build a life with Anna, wanting to take her somewhere far from Daniel, wanting to learn how to care for a child. In one letter he wrote, "If the baby is sick, we will not love her less. We will learn what she needs. We will make a life around her, not against her." Claire held the page to her chest. "He wanted me." "Yes. Why did no one let him?" "I don't know." She stared at the letters. "I have spent my whole life believing no one wanted me." Ethan felt tears rise in his eyes. "That was never true. It was true in the way my life felt." "I know." What am I supposed to do with people who wanted me, but never came? I don't know. Claire laughed bitterly. You always say that. Because I don't want to pretend I have answers. She looked at him. Maybe that's why I trust you. The revelation about Claire's identity eventually reached the public when an old newspaper reporter discovered the hospital records. Ethan was contacted by several journalists, but he refused to speak. Claire refused as well. Their story belonged to them. The hospital conducted an internal review. Some staff members had violated rules years earlier, but all those involved were dead or retired. The institution offered an apology and financial settlement. Claire rejected the money. What would I do with it? She asked Ethan. Whatever you want. It won't give me back 17 years. No, it won't give my mother back her life. No, it won't turn lies into truth. No. Then it's not what I need. She used her savings instead to establish a small support fund for women living with rare genetic conditions who had been dismissed or ignored by doctors. Ethan helped her connect with specialists, but he insisted the organization remain separate from the hospital. You need your own life, he told her. I know, and you can't spend it trying to repair everything. I know. Do you? She looked at him. I'm trying. That was enough. 2 years after Claire first entered Ethan's office, she moved into a new apartment near the waterfront. It had large windows, white walls, and a small balcony filled with plants. On the day she moved, Ethan carried boxes up the stairs while complaining about his back. You're a doctor, Claire said. Can't you diagnose yourself? I can diagnose poor planning. You brought 3 boxes of old records. They're important. They're all about me. They're about your family. That's worse. Ethan placed the last box in the living room. What are you going to do with them? I don't know. Keep them until you do. Claire walked toward the balcony. From there, the harbor was visible between the buildings. Boats moved slowly across the water, their white shapes bright against the deep blue. Do you think my mother ever came here? She asked. Probably. Do you think she liked Boston? She loved it. Why? She said the city made people believe they could become someone new. Claire turned to him. Did you become someone new? No, maybe you did. Maybe you just didn't notice. Ethan looked at her. She was wearing the silver bracelet. He had given it to her 6 months earlier. She had refused it twice before accepting it. What about you? He asked. Who are you becoming? Claire smiled. I'm still deciding. That seems reasonable. Do you regret finding me? Ethan felt the question in his chest. Never? Even when I'm difficult? Especially then. I'm not difficult. You once threw a hospital magazine at me because I told you to rest. You deserved it. I probably did. She leaned against the railing. I used to think my life was a straight line. My grandmother, my work, my apartment, my plans. Then I found a letter, and suddenly everything became a door. A door to what? The truth, I suppose. Truth can be painful. So can ignorance. Yes, but at least truth gives you somewhere to stand. Ethan nodded. The city below them began to glow as evening arrived. Lights appeared in windows, one by one. Somewhere in the distance, a siren sounded, then faded. Claire looked at him. Will you come to dinner on Sunday? Yes, bring the recipe for your mother's soup. You never liked that soup. I've never tasted it. You said it smelled strange. I was 18 months old. You were very judgmental. I probably inherited that from Mom. Ethan laughed. The sound surprised him. He had not laughed freely in years. Later that evening, after he returned home, he took the photograph of Anna from the bookshelf and placed it on the kitchen table. He opened the box of letters and read them again. For 17 years, he had believed his family story ended with a disappearance. He had thought grief was something that remained still, like a stone placed on a grave. But grief was not still. It moved through time. It changed shape. It waited in unexpected rooms, beneath old envelopes and faded handwriting, inside the eyes of a woman who had grown up believing she belonged nowhere. Ethan understood now that the secret had not simply returned Claire to him. It had forced him to confront the life he had abandoned while believing he was mourning it. He had spent years treating pain as something that could be managed if people remained disciplined enough. He had believed that facts were cleaner than feelings, that diagnosis could explain suffering, and that a closed door was safer than an unanswered question. Claire had shown him that some wounds did not heal when ignored. They only became invisible. The following Sunday, he prepared the soup. Claire arrived late, carrying a bag of bread and a small blue vase. "What's that?" Ethan asked. "Flowers for your mother?" "For mine." She placed the vase beside Anna's photograph. The flowers were simple and blue. They ate at the small kitchen table. The soup was not perfect. It was too salty, and the bread was slightly burned. Claire complained about both, but she finished her bowl. After dinner, they sat near the window. "Tell me another story about her," Claire said. Ethan thought for a moment. "Your mother once stole my bicycle." "Why?" "She wanted to go to the beach with her friends. I refused to lend it to her because I had an exam the next day." "So she stole it?" "Yes, what did you do?" "I walked 3 miles to find her." "Did you find her?" "She was sitting on the beach, eating ice cream." "Did you get angry?" "I tried." "Did it work?" "No," Claire smiled. "She sounds impossible." "She was. I wish I had known her." "So do I." "Do you think there's any part of her that we can still know?" Ethan looked at the photograph. "Every time you laugh, I hear her." Claire grew quiet. "Do I laugh like her?" "Yes, then maybe she isn't completely gone." "No," Ethan said. "She isn't." Outside, the evening settled over Boston. The rain had stopped, and the windows reflected the warm light of the apartment. For once, the city did not look distant or unreal. It looked close enough to touch. Claire leaned her head against Ethan's shoulder. He remained still, afraid that any movement might break the moment. After a while, she spoke. "Uncle Ethan?" He closed his eyes briefly. It was the first time she had called him that. "Yes? I'm glad you found me." He looked toward the photograph of Anna, then down at the woman beside him. "I'm glad you came back." "I didn't come back, I was always here." Ethan felt the words settle inside him. She was right. The child he had mourned had not vanished completely. She had grown up in another house, carried another name, and learned to survive without knowing where she came from. She had lived through loneliness, illness, and unanswered questions. She had become someone strong, not because the world had protected her, but because she had continued moving through it even when no one had given her the truth. Ethan had thought his patient's secret would change everything because it revealed a hidden family connection. But the real secret was larger. It was the truth that people could disappear from one another's lives without ever being truly gone. It was the truth that love could be buried beneath fear and still survive. It was the truth that family was not only formed by blood, names, or memories, but also by the decision to remain when leaving would be easier. Claire was not the lost baby in the hospital records anymore. She was not a mystery, a diagnosis, or a tragedy. She was Claire Bennett, Lily Anna Miller, a woman with her own choices and her own future. And Ethan was no longer a doctor waiting for the next emergency to distract him from his life. He was a brother who had lost his sister, an uncle who had found his niece, and a man finally learning that saving someone did not always mean preventing pain. Sometimes it meant standing beside them while they faced the truth. Sometimes it meant listening. Sometimes it meant staying. And sometimes, after years of silence, it meant opening the door when the person you had mourned was already standing on the other side.